Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's first All Encompass webinar that we've run, just to kind of share more insights about the sector that we operate in around wraparound care and childcare providers. And today's title is about Beyond Inspection. And it's about that confidence building for wraparound services providers. I'm Andy Hield. I'm from All Encompass. I also wear a number of other hats within the workforce. I've worked in the sport, child physical activity sector for the past 25 years at numerous levels. And All Encompass is a passion of mine, which is about bringing great opportunities to young people, but doing that in a safe and secure manner. And I'll be the host of today and hopefully going to take you through and explore and make you feel confident and prepared and calm when facing Ofsted in wraparound settings. We are going to record today's session, so if you've registered, we'll send this out as a full replay. Feel free to chat. So if you want to put anything in the group, any questions you've got, feel free to do so, and we'll answer them live as we go through. I've got some fantastic guests with me. As you can see, we've got Rebekah Jackson from Out of School Alliance, or it's Rebekah Jackson Reece. Get that correct, from Out of School Alliance. So thanks for Rebekah for coming. I've also got Trevor Diaz, again, who wears multiple hats, but will be here from All Encompass, and Joe Merritt, who also works for S4A, who use the All Encompass system, that will be giving us an insight into what a real inspection looks like and how the All Encompass system has worked for Joe. So before we move on, I'm just going to do some introductions. I'll come to you last, Rebekah. I'll save the best till last. But first of all, Trev, I don't know if you just kind of give us a bit of a background of who you are and why you're here today.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So like Andy mentioned, my name's Trevor Diaz. I'm part of the All Encompass team. So about 2 years ago, a few of us came together. And we came together with some commonalities, and the commonalities were around children, was around support, provision for children, and specifically for me was around disability, and the all-encompassing nature of making everything available, all the fantastic services that we've got available to children of all makes, all shapes, all sizes, regardless of the needs of those children. And that was the main reason that brought us all together, to think about what we could do to try to enable that and support that. And that's where All Encompass came about from. So that's the reason why I'm here on this call now.
Brilliant. Thanks, Trev. And Joe, why are you here today?
So I work with a company called S4A Group Limited. So we do wraparound care, PE lessons, holiday clubs in this sector, and we use All Encompass booking system. I was a settings manager of one of our biggest venues. On top of my current work, so I'm an operations manager at S4A, and I had to go to one of the wraparound cares from September to December because we were during Ofsted, and it was by far our biggest setting. So we wanted to make sure that was right and set it correctly. After doing the inspection and helping Matt, who's another one of the directors at All Encompass alongside, he's also director at S4A, I asked him to get on board with All Encompass a few months after having the inspection, because I wanted to be able to provide the service that I had and the tool that we had with All Encompass and make other company owners in our sector aware of what it was. But my day-to-day is running S4A throughout the week. So yeah.
Good. We'll look forward to that insight later on in the session. And then finally, Rebekah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. I think you're well renowned within the sector as, let's say, the queen of wraparound, really. But from Out of School Alliance, could you just really give us a quick intro, really, or not so much a quick intro, just kind of where did it all come from, where did it all start? I know you started to go into that with us, so we'll pause you a little bit. What brings you here today with us?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, and thanks for inviting me. It's always lovely to be able to share conversations around Ofsted and beyond that kind of basic compliance, but also where there's something that makes people's lives easier. That's literally one of our mottos at the Out of School Alliance, is how to help the everyday life of a out of school or wraparound business owner that little bit better and a little bit easier. And that kind of comes from my experience as a wraparound provider. I started out of uni, not even knowing what I wanted to do, applied for all the jobs in the paper, and that shows how old I actually am. And I went to work running holiday play schemes for disabled children and their siblings in rural mid Wales. So we ran holiday provision, top, middle and bottom of the county, transport routes, the whole thing. And I learned so many lessons during that time about how to be inclusive, but also how to actually run a provision. And I'll never forget the one piece of advice that a wonderful lady called Terry, who worked with me, she said, just because it's in your head does not mean that the rest of us know it. You might have everything covered, but you have to communicate it really well. And it was one of those lessons that has stuck with me. I then went on to work in a large unitary authority, Cheshire County Council, delivering childcare development stuff under the old Sure Start days when there was lots of money wrapping around in the sector to set stuff up. I've had a strategic lead role in another local authority covering early years play, sort of the play service and the childcare service. And then in 2019, I set up on my own after being made redundant twice. So not obviously two different roles at two different times. And I decided that I didn't like other people having that much control over my destiny, if you like. Set up my consultancy business, determined not to work in wraparound and in childcare, and got dragged back into it very quickly. And then in 2021, I took over at the Out of School Alliance as the CEO and the owner of that service that's been around since 2009, but took it over, and we have since been working on our sort of 3 pillars of service. One is around information and community, making sure people have got the right information and got the community around them to build really successful businesses. Another one around advocacy. So I do a lot of work with the Department for Education, a lot of advocacy work. I've done some recent work with Ofsted around the new framework. And then we've got a pillar around innovation as well. So 3 things that probably really cut across all the things that you are telling us All Encompass stands for.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. And I feel like we always, people look at sometimes you see the outside picture, but they don't fully understand all the different challenges and sometimes failures that we go through to kind of what brings us to where we are today and all those experiences. So, you know, it sounds like you've had some amazing experience and insights to bring us to where we are today. So the first part really is a questions to yourself, really, just to kind of unpick that experience and knowledge. And the first one is for the listeners as well, really, is what's the bigger picture? You know, we've seen wraparound, we've seen about childcare, we've seen about funding coming in from government, various other things going on. You know, what's the current climate like for wraparound providers almost across the UK at the minute?
I think it's really exciting and a little bit daunting. I think we've got a position where our wraparound providers have had no government intervention, really. In some cases, no support from the local authority or from anybody else in the last almost 15 years. So actually, with the introduction of the National Wraparound Childcare programme and the funding that's associated with that distributed by local authorities, I think we've got a real opportunity to take a little bit of risk, actually, to kind of go, do you know what, I've always wanted to expand what we're doing. I know there's a little bit of a gap over there, but do you know what, I just can't take the risk, particularly post-COVID. I think lots of providers haven't got the financial resilience underneath them because a lot of them stayed open during COVID and completely, you know, lent into those reserves and those savings. So I think there's a real opportunity to test some expansion with a little bit of support from the funding, take some of that financial risk away. I think there is a threat. As there always is. We've got a bit of a threat around the National Free Breakfast Club programme, which is being tested at the moment. I'm one of the DfE's expert advisors for the Breakfast Club programme. So I'm seeing that from lots of different angles, as always. And I think that there are always opportunities. I do think for providers in wraparound, they're seeing those opportunities. Seeing those opportunities is perhaps a little bit more difficult with the Breakfast Club programme, but we don't know what national rollout is going to look like yet, so we're just all taking a breath and we'll see what happens afterwards. There's just a lot of change. We've got a new Ofsted framework coming in that's going to be released in September. And we're used to dealing with change in this sector, aren't we? You know, we're used to actually the change that kids bring every day, the change that comes every term with the seasons in terms of practice, but also the change that comes every academic year when we get a new cohort of children. So I think providers need to see that we've got a lot of things happening, and that always makes us feel uncomfortable, but there are lots of opportunities available at the moment. We just need to be brave, I think, and take some of them.
Yeah, and I think that's, yeah, it's a powerful message. I think there's a famous quote. I tend to find myself using this all the time at the moment. It's a guy called Ray Kurzweil, who's worked for Google, so it's very AI shifted, but I think AI gives us a bit of a shift of change. But he stated that we're experiencing 200,000 years of change in the next 100 years. And a lot of people we speak to is that there's so much happening, there's so much shift and change going on. And I think I'm glad you said that around, you know, that space. It is something to look at as an opportunity, but of course with that comes those threats, especially if we don't get it right. So, and that kind of leads me to the next question really, is what do you think providers often underestimate when it comes to managing settings?
The first thing that jumps into my head is a message that I give to so many of my coaching clients and the people I work with, and the providers that we work with in the Out of School Alliance. The thing that they underestimate all of the time is that nobody will ever care as much about it as they will. And so when they get hurt by a member of staff not giving 100% or being, you know, difficult in their eyes, where something that impacts on their business that they've absolutely put their heart and soul into, that they can't always understand why other people don't care as much as they do. Because when you're a business owner, and I'm a business owner, and most of the people I work with are business owners, you are everything to everybody. And that is also an underestimation. I don't think anybody really underestimates how hard it is to run a business.
Yeah.
And we're running hard businesses in wraparound, quite bespoke businesses in wraparound, heavily regulated businesses in wraparound, in an industry that's already quite hard and where there's a lot of negative narrative about it. So a couple of things in there really. One is nobody's ever going to care about it quite as much as you do as a leader and as a business owner. And if you find somebody, keep hold of them, chain them, do not let them go. But equally that there is so many things, and you will always have to step into any gap that appears, and the sacrifice that goes with that as well.
Yeah. And just leading on from that really, what would be your top tips to ensure that you're looking after the people, you're making sure that you're not getting that breakaway or people getting upset in the business?
We talk a lot about supporting our team's well-being, and I think that comes in many different forms. It's a bit of a joke really, isn't it, or a flippant comment that we don't do this for the money, because we don't do this sort of work for the money. We do this because we're values led, because we're nurturers, because we want to make impact on people, and for lots of reasons. But if you can tune into the reason why a member of staff or a team member is part of your team, if you can unpick them as an individual and treat them as an individual, help them to feel included, help them to feel valued at a level that really speaks to them as a person, not just a sausage in the sausage factory really. If you can really tune into them as an individual and treat them really well, I think you will keep more people within our teams. Because I think on a very fundamental basic level, nobody gets up out of bed in the morning to do a bad job. People want to do a good job, particularly working in this industry. And so if you can help them to feel valued, that's really important. And there's a proverb, I suppose, that has stuck with me for a long time, and it says, if you want somebody to take off their coat, you don't tell them to take off their coat, you make them feel hot. We make them feel warm so they want to take off their coat. And I think, do you know what, it really struck me and has really stuck with me for a long time, and I think we need to do more of that.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. And I think that leads nicely. I think what Joe might talk about later on is that And I think there's a shift in leadership in businesses, and certainly in wraparound care is what we talk a lot about, well, through All Encompass really, is that it's like you said, that psychological safety, feeling comfortable to take off your coat, you know, like nobody kind of turns up to work on purpose to do something wrong. But I think it's important as businesses that we make sure that we do put things in place and help them and listen to them and nurture and train them so that, you know, and use systems and processes that enable them to, you know, not feel fearful of making mistakes, especially in wraparound settings, you know, when you've got lots of children running around with different needs and different things, it's like, how do we make that as clear as possible? So, you know, thanks for sharing that. And I love that proverb. I think I'll pinch that. I'll stick that on my LinkedIn at some point, I'm sure. But now turning to Ofsted.
Yep.
I didn't know you was working within that with the DFE, and that's great to hear. But are you seeing any patterns or new areas of focus from inspectors recently, and how they're approaching it?
We're not necessarily seeing new areas of focus right now. However, we do have a new inspection framework that Ofsted have been consulting upon over this year, really. It all comes as a part of the big period of change that Ofsted are going through. They've had quite a lot of criticism levelled at them, rightly or wrongly, in terms of how the whole inspection remit has been going. And we've seen some very high profile consequences of how things have happened, and that has been a catalyst for change. And I do believe, from what I've seen and what I've been involved in, that we're going in the right direction. The new framework will be coming out in early September. No date on that, but early September is what's being talked about. And Ofsted have taken time with this. They've taken time to read. I think it's somewhere like 3,000 to 5,000 responses to the consultation and the proposal. And they've taken time to read those, to really think about it, to test. And again, things have moved on. So Ofsted have undergone a real big period of change. That new inspection framework is going to be applicable and coming into power from November. So there's a little bit of time in between it being released to providers actually being inspected against it. But again, it's more change. It's what people will feel nervous about. And I think the next rounds of inspections for providers are going to feel very uncomfortable because it's the first time under a new framework. But I think there's some core things that haven't changed. And those are the things that I don't think we're necessarily going to see any change, any kind of thematic changes through the inspection process. And those core things just link very much back to the legal framework upon which the Ofsted process sits. So our regulatory framework that is expressed through EYFS or the Childcare Register, which all providers need to make sure that they're meeting. And those haven't changed. So what we're going to see is a change in methodology. We're going to see a change in themes that they're going to be looking at, and the way in which they report will change. But underneath it all, they're still inspecting against the same standards. And if we've got good standards and we're meeting them well, we shouldn't be worried.
Okay, awesome. And I kind of taking you back into the settings place now of, you know, where you've got that wraparound setting, you've got children in there, and Ofsted turn up. Is what do clubs or settings commonly slip up or get caught off guard?
I think that where we tend to see the most not mets and judgments that come through, what we tend to see is it's around an error in recording. There is a slip up, a minor admin slip up that's coming through. What we don't tend to see is big impacts and big challenges against the kind of practice side of things. What we tend to see is a reference missing from a staff file. We'll see training that's slipped out of date. We'll see a pattern that hasn't been picked up in terms of recording. Some of the changes to EYFS, for example, that have come out from, or that have just been published to come into form in September. I think there's a little risk there about recording things around the safeguarding training dates, around the member of staff who is responsible for checking the allergens in terms of food. Those sorts of things are the things that I think providers could potentially slip up against. whether or not they've got more than 2 emergency contacts listed for every child, and where those records are kept and are they accessible. So it's minor procedural things are where most providers get, if you like, caught out at inspection, because it's so much an everyday part of their practice.
Yeah.
And providers in this space are not given a judgment against the quality of education, because that is exempt for them. So it's just met. You meet the minimum standards, or do you not? And if you're not, where?
So you don't mind, Andy, if I just chip in there a sec, because I really like what you said, and how that linked to something earlier on. You mentioned earlier on, people who are within this industry are not in it for the money. They're in it for the purpose, the values, what they're delivering. And actually that kind of matches quite nicely with you said the areas, because in other industries, people can name them how they want. People could typically do something to circumvent a process or whatever for the sole purpose of earning more money, getting more customers. But actually what you're saying is the good thing, and what you're seeing across many people in this industry, which is great, is they're in it to provide a brilliant service, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're focused on. But then, unfortunately, sometimes, because it's so focused on that, it's the little things then that, okay, the procedure stuff, the regulatory stuff, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think it's the best example I can give you is around staffing ratios. So, for those people who've been operating in this space for a long time, they will probably still be working on a 1:8, maybe a 1:10 ratio. And it's interesting, I've been doing quite a lot of training recently, and in this one piece of training that I do, at one point I'll say to them, okay, well, who can tell me the legal minimum staffing requirements? And there's a handful of people out of about 200 who've been able to get it spot on, because just because it's legal doesn't mean it's safe. And actually, we've got providers who don't know the legal kind of boundaries of their practice, because they're already working to much closer, much tighter, much safer ratios. It's just a nonsense to them in many ways to practice in any other way. And I think there's another example of how they can stretch it. They can go to 1:30 legally if they want to, if they're caring for children who started in school. But there's no way they would do that, because the quality of the practice that they deliver would be so severely impacted upon. But it would save them money, and they possibly make more money, but they're not in it for that. And it's just another example to pull that through of why this sector is so blooming brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Trev, and thanks, Rebecca. That's really powerful. And I think I'm going to move to Jo in a second, but a little bit of a push really for what we do here at All Encompass, and there's lots of digital systems out there. And I think you've mentioned there about those things, but how do you see digital systems, I like All Encompass, kind of making a difference when it does come to reducing inspection stress, or helping those team, that psychological safety, as we mentioned before, prepare and feel comfortable for when an Ofsted inspection may take place?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I'm super keen on efficiency. We again have this conversation a lot, and I always say, don't come at me and tell me that that there's just too much paperwork to be done in this space, because I think we create busy work for ourselves a lot of the time. And go back to the standards. What do you legally have to deliver, and where are the gaps, and can you fill a gap with a process? I do think that we need to be braver about leaning into tech solutions, and I think that they can sometimes make us feel uncomfortable, but actually they can help us to be really efficient. And the biggest bonus that I can think of, having had some conversations around All Encompass and those ticking those boxes, really is about that peace of mind that once you've gone through and kind of used that system, that peace of mind is there that, unless something changes, you've got the records, and that digital system can help you to really demonstrate that you are meeting those minimum standards. So any day Ofsted can come in, and you don't have to have that frantic panic of, have I got this, and where's that, and is that recorded, and when did I last check, because the system is doing it for you. And that, for me, you mentioned psychological safety, and I always say, don't panic, but I know that's the first thing you're going to do when Ofsted ring you. You are going to panic. Nobody wants to feel judged. And all that will go through your mind is what if, what if, what if, what if. And the reality of it is that safety net needs to be there underneath your everyday practice. And if we can reduce the number of people who don't know the legal minimum operating requirements for working in the space, but also have got everything covered because the system walks them through it, I'm definitely all for that, because we can then go on and do the stuff that we're really good at, which is creating magical experiences for kids every day.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Okay, over to you, Joe. So some really powerful insights there, Rebecca, and I think, you know, that he definitely sings a tune with me. You know, it's about us kind of putting our providers in a space where they can, you know, create those magical experiences and create memorable experiences is what we like to create with All the Shield. So I'm going to move over to you, Joe, now, in terms of, you know, what Rebecca's saying now really looks like in practice. And you're going to talk us through and show us, you know, how All Encompass has supported you within your role, and how it kind of helped you through, you know, that real Ofsted experience. So yeah, over to you, really. Do you want to start off with giving us kind of a brief background on the setting? I know you did this a little bit before.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so first of all, when we moved to All Encompass, I'm really biased of S4A. I joined from a company I used to work in Leicester, and it's incredible what we provide for the children. And I think we're a real staple in what we do. We train a lot of other companies of how to provide leading wraparound care that falls in with Ofsted, and creating the memories and the culture of children. It's something I'm so passionate about. So with All Encompass, we were able to take on so many more schools and provide thousands and thousands of more families the opportunity to have wraparound care at that school to the level that they can have it at, because it does everything for you. So I've done 6 or 7 Ofsted since working for S4A. My recent one was I was working for our biggest wraparound care venue in a place called Brackley. And when we got the call, I was really excited actually to show them our system. I get quite confident with it because I like Ofsted to come and see the provision we offer. I think the last 6 Ofsteds we've not had a single area for improvement. Even though they always say to us we have to put one in there, they never have. And I think that's really a testament to what we do. This inspection was a little bit different. They went into a lot of detail around the booking system, and we're curious of what we were using. And I was very glad it was my setting, because being in the background, as I run the booking system at S4A, was one of my jobs to make sure people are trained. I could be the best person and most knowledgeable person to tell the Ofsted inspector, but also we've trained our team enough, and it's simple enough to use that even the play leaders who are working there, we had the settings lead there, she could talk about our booking system and All Encompass quite freely. So what I'll do is I'll share a live demo of what it looks like.
Yeah, and that'd be really cool, really. It's kind of, you know, what I think there's 2 questions for me to ask there, really, is what you're leading on to is what triggered the switch to All Encompass? What was it was causing the pain points?
So we were on a system before which was using, we spoke about earlier about using Zapier. So we were getting bookings come through the website, and it then had to zap it and go to our system. But there's a delay, you use so many zaps. And sometimes we were getting children arrive to the club when parents said they booked, but they weren't appearing on the register. And for safeguarding, that's a massive no, and we didn't want to have to do that. And also the time it took to create all the products, it was not feasible for us to continue doing it in that provision. And we were getting so many schools inquire saying we really want S4A to come and do it, but we didn't have the capacity to do that. And like I said, every business has to make money, but trying to constantly employ more and more and more office admin staff, we thought that there must be another way around it. So we were a big part in developing All Encompass really, really early on, of developing the system. But when it became All Encompass, how it developed next is amazing of what we can do. And I'll share obviously my experience, but the Ofsted inspector left, and she's head of a nursery. She's got her nursery, and she asked when it makes the nursery, please get in touch with me, because I enjoy it that much. So that's when I knew from that point is it's something I want to give back to business owners and share what system, what we've got as well.
Yeah, that's cool, mate. And I think, you know, I suppose what's nice to hear is obviously we've been blessed with having you involved with the development of the system, is in that this has been developed first-hand from first-hand experiences. It's not kind of just been in the background, we think this will work. This is how it's been tried and tested. So yeah, can you now tell us a little bit, how did it help you through Ofsted?
Of course. So what I'll do is I'll show you, we have different systems in our All Encompass system. I'm going to show you All Encompasses as a demo, as I can't share the data from the one we had, just for GDPR purposes at S4A. So there's going to be some made up names in here, but all the principles are still the same. So first of all, when we had the inspector arrive, she went with our other operation manager, who's also our DSL, and had all the questions. She was very, very keen to come and ask questions from the start. So she wanted to see how we collected children. So first of all, I explained to her that every single class teacher has a list of has a register, and she's like, "Oh, is that the one that the school have to send manually? What happens if the office lady's not in?" I said, "No." They said they have one email that comes through. So it looks like this. So every teacher will get set up, and they'll receive an email, and that's a link to the register, and it automatically filters it to every day. So it has today straight away. They can click on, and they can see the children only that are in their year group. So another question Ofsted inspector had was, "Oh, what happens if there's several different children attending from all the years? How are they going to filter it?" So we filter it for them. So we've made it really easy for the school can manage a system, or we can manage a system. Moves out our way. So every school can choose who sees what year groups. So the teacher manages several year groups, and they can tick that, and they'll see all the children that are coming. So first of all, that's the question she asked. Luckily, I had the teacher who was there at the time. She had the register on the whiteboard, talking to the children about who was going. But that is a process that we set for the school. It wasn't, I say it was lucky, it's a process we set. So we tell the school that what we expect is that the children you can tell the children quickly who are attending. So I went to go and pick up the year 5 children that day. I'll show you as if it was from yesterday. So that class teacher seen all the year 5 children that they had when they were there. So we had 3 year 5s, and they were all in their class. And I was talking in particular about how their day was, in particular about this child here. So again, it's fabricated purposes, but there's a child in that year group who had the S locator name. So that means there's an SEND diagnosis for them. So we see that on our register. The school, they would just see the S, they would need to get information they would know anyway. So from our point of view, is on our register, I went to go and speak to the class teacher in detail with how this child was today, and the Ofsted inspector asked me why I was speaking so much about this child, and I explained because they've got an S next to their name, which means they've got SEND needs, and I wanted to go into a little bit more detail with how his day was. What is anything that's triggered him today? How's his day? I always ask about, has he eaten, based on, so we can understand, right, what have they had and how are they going to come to our wraparound care, so we can make sure that we're putting the best facility on for them, but the one that we know is going to meet their needs for that day. And said, yeah, had a really good day. So we could then look after this child and put in any necessary arrangements that we had. So if he hadn't eaten, we could make sure that he had access to his lunchbox, and we could try and encourage that as well. So that helps quite quickly. I think the inspector was like, okay, so this is how the system works. She then, when we got all the children together, so we can see all different year groups. So I went to the Key Stage 2, so I was filtering it to year 3, year 4, year 5, and year 6. And it's really quick, really doesn't take long at all. So I could quickly go out to every single classroom and say which one I was collecting. We then had an incident. So when we mark a child has arrived, it changes colour as well. And she was really intrigued by this. So they've not been arrived yet. So we had to mark them as arrived, which means they've gone to yellow. And then we'll mark them as collected as well. She asked me what would happen if you mark the wrong person's arrived. So there's just an undo button here. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Rebecca, about admin errors, is we have that undo button saying I've not arrived yet. So when we went to collect the year 6 children, there was a child who hadn't arrived, and I spoke to the class teacher, and she said she's gone home with parents. We don't just take the teacher's word for it. So we rang the parent, clicked on a child's name, and we could then ring the parent, 1 or 2, who's on there as an emergency contact, and they said, yeah, that is correct, they have gone home. So we know that we're not going to mark them as arrived. Also, what it would tell us when we reset it, it says to us here how many children marks arrived. So if I mark this child here has arrived now, it would tell us they've arrived. But we knew there's 14 children booked on because this child hasn't arrived, and our team know the colour system as well. They know that blue was they haven't arrived yet. Yellow means they're in our care currently, and when it goes to purple, that means they're being collected. So this is an example of one we did yesterday, so that's why everyone's being collected. Whereas if I was to show you today, we would have it that the children haven't been collected, haven't arrived yet because the club hasn't started yet. That's how it would look. And yeah, if we were to do it, then we can tick it all as well as marks collected. So it's really easy, really slick. Every single one of our team members were competently trained on it as well. So she asked about how do you get around about using mobile phones. So every staff member has a separate login. So they just log in and they have a memorable word, which they can just type in whatever the memorable word was. They'll ask them for different characters and they'll put in that character as well. That eliminated all mobile phones, which we could put away in a lockbox securely. So that was one of the questions she had about how you get around that side of it as well. We were then asked, they're really because we're S4A, we're on the early years Ofsted registration. They asked how many early years children we had. So we said, oh, on that day we only had this child. So we could talk about that child in depth. We explained though that child wasn't coming until 4:30. So and she asked how, so they were at a club first. I said, how did you know they were at a club? I said, okay, we can filter it so we can see the arrival and collection time. So now it's arrival time, it says 4:30 onwards. We know they're at a club because we've done our due diligence with the school and with the club they're at as well. So we said this child will be arriving, and we get all the questions of how we've supported the child. That's obviously separate, but we had knowledge on it. We also, she asked about how would you know if the child's got any medical needs, dietary needs, allergies. So we have some icons, so put them on some pretend children. So it has it here, it says A is allergy, S is SEND needs, there's a collection safety order in place for that child. This one can't have any photos, and the medical's the M. So our team members can just click on it and they can see as much detail as possible. So we know with this child here, they're allergic to nuts, so we have to make sure there's no nuts, and we nut-free policy at the school we worked at. This child has ADHD and autism, and he can only leave with mum and dad. So we will know that at collection, if anyone else turns up this child, we're not allowing you to go because we've got the collection safety order in place. She said to me, how would you know that? I said, it's really clear because there's an icon here. She said, what about if they miss that? As they do, they try and prompt absolutely everything. So what we set from this is it marks up here when you mark the child's collected, it has safeguarding notes. This child, for example, this child can walk home, for example, given written consent, but whereas this child here, if I undo it, then it comes up every time in big letters as a safeguarding note. So the Ofsted inspector said, okay, I really like how you've done that. I can see how you wouldn't miss that as well. We were asked how many children were with us at the time. So as you can see, these children for the system, it says 2 children are currently with us now. So it would say that we have 2 children on site. We've had 11 collected. We had 13 arrive overall, and there's 7 children eating meals as well. So we could clearly see from when they were signed in and out of how many we had on site with us at that moment in time. Whereas the ones that are being collected said, we can just scroll down. So at the school we worked at, we had around 40 children that night, so a lot more than what I'm showing here, but it still works exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether we have 14 children or 40 children, the principles are still the same. She said, how do you know when to get children? Because there's a lot of children. So we just filter it. So we can do from children leaving at 4:30, children leaving at 5, children leaving at 5:30, and children leaving at 6 as well. So that just worked. That worked really easily. Another question we had, which I never had before actually, was how many children on roll. So we at S4A typically do it differently. We don't have a set number of on roll children. We do a 40 place limit with what we can take for Ofsted, but we have that children can book as and when. We don't have just 40 children that can book. We have the whole school can book as and when they need to use a wraparound care. We just wouldn't be able to go over the 40 children mark as per Ofsted requirements. So from an admin point of view, an admin portal, look, I've got access to this, but I had it anyway. You can just press session register export. You can choose the dates. She wanted to know the whole academic year. Only in that time, we're only in October, November time, so it wasn't too far to go back, but the option is there. So we can download any child that attended from September all the way to today if we wanted to, and the register, and it comes out like this. So we can see we've had this many children, we can also see all the information needed, but I could tell the Ofsted inspector, so they asked me today at All Encompass Primary, we've got 15 children on roll, whereas at that school we had about 80 different children on roll. And she said, I've never thought of doing it like that as well, which again, having that option to download it in a minute, it gave all that information really quickly of what she could put down then. We then had a first aid incident at the school. A child fell over playing football, cut their knee. So she asked, how would that be recorded? So we use a form that we fill out and that parents have to sign. But she said, how would you report that as well further? So just here, we have every single setting and person who logs in has an instant reporting button. So you can add any incident that they like. You can say when it occurred. You can put the behaviour type. Oops. You can say, was it a medical? Was it safeguarding children involved? The instance. We can tick if a form has been completed and a parent has been notified. So in this case, we had an incident here that we sent. We said this child had a football injury, playing outside, fell over the ball, was about to have first aid treatment, which was given an antiseptic wipe and a plaster to cover it. So that incident then flags on our systems every single person who's a DSL. They'll get an email saying incident has been reported at All Encompass Primary. Please click here to view it. She asked again, how would you report a safeguarding? How would DSL know? It's exactly the same process. And then what we do at S4A is we use CPOMs with every single school. We upload it to CPOMs and they can see the incident live as well. So that helped with that situation. We then asked a lot of sort of safeguarding questions that weren't to do with this, but she was impressed with how that worked. We were then asked what would happen if a parent arrived or someone arrived for a child who we hadn't met before. So I explained to the office inspector we have a very consistent team that stay in. We have our own ratio at S4A. We go no more than a 1 to 8 or 1 to 10 ratio. We try, depending on the children that we have. So we said every single child had a collection password. So if this child did arrive, then they've got a password just here. She said again, that's how would you see it if you're marking them out? So if we had a parent arrive, we click that one and it tells what the collection password was. If that person couldn't get the collection password, then we would not allow that child to go and we would ring one of the numbers on the system to get authorization from that person. It could be a sibling, but if we've never met that person before as part of our safeguarding requirements, then we can ask them questions, try and get the collection password and make sure that every parent puts their own collection password on for every single child. Everybody's is different, so that's catered to each one of them. A big thing we had, which is again one of the big reasons that we moved to All Encompass, was on our old system we issued Google Sheets and it wouldn't tell us what time a child left, and she asked us to see it. So I could tell her that Declan Donnelly, he left at 4:30. This child left at 4:30 as well. This child left at 32 minutes past 4, so it's recorded from the second that they are collected. So with this child, I would see, once I've refreshed it, that they left at 17 minutes past 3 on what date. So we're really hot on this because we always say, God forbid it ever happened, if anything was to happen to a child, we could pinpoint directly when they last attended our club. So we have set the model that every single person will go to the door, they'll sign the child out once the parent is collected, so we can know the exact second, if we wanted to, of when they left. And the office inspector did ask to see that live to see how it worked as well, which again, it did. She then asked about when serving food in the evening. So she said, how do you know who's eating? Some people provide food for every child. We don't at S4A in particular. So we've created an option where children have a food icon. She asked, well, how would you know what allergies and dietary requirements they have? Every child, if there's one, we say it's the parent, but they have an A or D, we click on them and we can see, so this child here is celiac and can't have any nuts, so we would make sure that we've provided the bread in advance, and we give the responsibility to the settings manager who will look in advance or on the day and say if a child has booked in late, then they will make sure that that child can be catered for and we'll provide food for them. We do keep it, we tell all parents at S4A that we provide the food for the child, and a lot of them, every time we go in, went to school recently, they're like, well, you'll pay for the food. I said, absolutely, that's something that we'll provide, but we have that knowledge to know that they can't have wheat products as well. So yeah, all in all, I think the inspection, like I said, it left end of it. She was talking really highly of it and said if it ever gets to a nursery stage, then she would love to speak to us in more detail. And that was off the record after the inspection finished. But she mentioned the digital system on her Ofsted report for us. And so yeah, it was a really proud moment. I think it's just so quick and so slick of passing an Ofsted inspection based on the tool you've got. And like Rebecca was saying earlier, you want to be able to simplify everything. You want to be able to spend more time caring for the children, delivering your outstanding service, than spending time doing the admin or still doing paper forms that might get wet if you've transferred them, you might lose them in your pocket. We've eliminated all of that, and even school has an access to the register where the office lady doesn't have to send it out every single day or take a paper copy around every single day. They just have one link that they can manage. They can choose if that teacher leaves, they can stop the link. They can send the link every day. They can send one link that they have. They can choose what year group they have, and they can do that in a matter of seconds. So, yeah, it really helped us with our inspection recently that we had.
Awesome. Well, thanks for Joe. That's a brilliant insight into how it works, and I think just one parting question really on that is just from you've come at that there from like an operations point of view, and obviously getting through the inspection, but kind of sticking with some of the theme that we've talked about really, in that how does the system kind of support your team, from that psychological safety point of view? How does that help for them?
So how I showed you then was a staff version of the portal. So the admin portal is a lot more information, and we've trained staff members. We've created tutorial videos. All Encompass, we've got videos as well that we use to send out to S4A coaches and players to say this is how you use each one. It's really clear. It's completely live. The second the parent books, they go onto the register. So there's no more, oh well, I booked, but they're not appearing on the register. It's completely live. So it gives our team the confidence that one of their reporting limits is going to be monitored. They know exactly which children are going to be arriving. They can filter it per year group. So when they're collecting the children, even when we work in schools where there's 400 or 500 children, we can collect them so much easier, and they're already ready because the school have got it ready for us. So so we employ people from 3 o'clock, even though it starts 3:15. People would normally have to leave at 3:05 to go and start collecting children. We spend an extra 15 minutes prepping the room, making sure it's ready, and then we can go and collect the children because we know that they're already going to be ready for us, because that's the foundations that we set and the option that you do have with the All Encompass system.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate you taking that time, and hopefully that's useful to people watching. And if anybody wants to obviously speak to Joe or reach out about any further questions, obviously feel free to do so. But now I'm just going to kind of bring it to a close. I'm conscious of time, but I'm just going to overhand you, Trev, that it's not just by fluke that we've got Rebekah here today. We're actually really excited about working in collaboration with Out of School Alliance. And I'm just going to hand you over to Trev, who's going to talk to us a little bit about, well, what does that offer look like?
So thanks, Andy, and appreciate that, Joe. Great demonstration there. I want to point back to something that Rebekah said about people that work within this environment and the companies and people that are in there. There's a reason that they're doing it, which is more than just for the money. It's to provide memorable experiences was the exact word.
Magical, I think.
Magical experiences. And obviously, I'm from All Encompass, so I am biased towards the system and what we've developed and what we do. But I think it's really important, first and foremost, is that All Encompass is not a system that has gone out and got funding from external shareholders, from external investors. We are not beholden to, and that what I mean by that, and the reason I'm mentioning that is we're not beholden to anyone. There's 5 people that are heavily invested in this company. All of those 5 people are invested for a very specific reason. And yes, we have commercial reasons that we have to operate at a certain commercial thing so we can make this viable to everyone. But that is not the reason for this system to provide a profit and a commercial profit for everyone. That genuinely the reason that this system was built was around everything that Rebekah mentioned and everyone else has discussed, is to enable providers to do the absolute best that they can do what they're absolutely amazing at, and make this and everything that they provide as all-encompassing for everyone, regardless of whatever their needs, solutions, services. And as Joe mentioned, the system has been set up perfectly to be able to enable providers to do that, so they can open these settings to everyone. So that being said, though, we've got some really good pricing in terms of the alliance that we've got with Rebekah. We're really proud of that. So the system is really simple in terms of its pricing structure, and that's to our values as well: transparency, honesty, and trust. So it's 3.5% of any bookings is the charge for the system. We have a £20 per month fee that goes towards the system. And we do not have any contractual periods. So we don't tie anyone in. We don't have any contractual periods. We don't have any onboarding costs. And the alliance that we've got with Out of School Alliance, it reduces the fee from 3.5% to 2.5%, which is it's absolutely fantastic. It makes the system really affordable. We want to get it out there to as many people as possible that can enable them to give their services to as many people as possible. Full onboarding, full training at no cost. Access to all the portals, whether it's a school portal, admin portal, staff portal. Remind me, Joe, the fourth one, sorry.
Portal.
What's that, sorry?
The parent portal.
Parent portal, that's the one, thank you. So full access to the whole system for 2.5%. Lifetime fee, so you'll be locked in at that fee. You'll never be charged any more than that fee. And yeah, no time periods.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor, and thanks, Rebekah, for partnering with us on it. We really appreciate it. So that's just coming to a close. So I know we've got Mark on. I don't, Mark, if you've got any questions or anything you had to say, feel free to unmute yourself or stick any questions you might have in the chat. If you've not got anything, that's also fine. Just a chance to ask anything that you may want to ask. No.
I'll just touch on, Rebekah, could you just say how a company can join the Out of School Alliance to be able to get our offer?
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these no-brainer offers, really, isn't it? Is that the cost of our membership is £55 a year per setting. So if you are likely to have significant transactions going through this, it's probably the best £55 you'll ever spend, for many reasons, not just the discounts that we offer. So fundamentally, you just need to go to our website, which is outofschoolalliance.co.uk. I think even if you put OOSA into Google, we'll still come up. And then there's a big purple button at the top. You just need to poke any of the big purple buttons and fill in your details. And yeah, that will give you access to not only the brilliant discounts being offered from All Encompass and other providers like Morton Michelle as a leading insurance provider, etc., but a huge amount of information, advice, support and guidance, and the advocacy that we do as well.
Yeah, I've used Out of School Alliance for a very long time. I was saying when we got on the call earlier, just looking at how to do everything. So how you register for Ofsted, what's the importance of Ofsted, knowing what the ratios are. There's so much on there. So when we said about partnering with you guys, it was a very quite pinch me moment for me because I've known about the company for such a long time. It's something we're really proud to be a part of as well.
Thank you.
And we're looking, and we are going to be working with councils as well soon. We're going to be putting another offer of how we can support councils with this approach. I think like what Rebekah referred to before in terms of different funding pots and how they're being council led. We're looking at how, again, people can maximise the system, and from a council setting, you might utilise the skills of the Out of School Alliance as well, which is, again, it's all about our value driven about creating the great opportunities for young people. So big thank you to everybody. Thanks for coming along. Really appreciate you taking the time out and for sharing those amazing insights. You know, thank you, Rebekah, being so open about it and being really clear. It is an exciting time for everybody, I think, and I think with the new inspection framework coming and so on and so forth, it's not something to be scared about. And I'm just really proud, and thank you, Joe, for showing us how we can orientate that using the system. So we have recorded the session, and we'll circulate this out, and I'm sure if anybody has any questions, fire them into us. We're more than happy. I'm sure not too many. Rebekah's a busy person, but I'm sure if need be, she will come back to you. And thank you. Take care. Thanks for being part of this incredible wraparound community that we're trying to create, and enjoy the rest of your days and evenings. Thanks all.